All right, we're joined now by Jordan Reid from ESPN, a yearly tradition of you coming down to the table, which I really appreciate, Jordan. One of the best draft analysts in the business. How you doing? It's good to see you.
I'm good. I'm just hoping you guys have caught your breath after a long season.
Yeah, I know. I feel like we're, the chest out a little bit, right?
Yeah.
Like we didn't finish the job, but we were pretty close.
Right.
So it's very exciting. But now that we turn the page to the draft, very, very different draft scenario for the Patriots. What do you kind of see as some of the players that they could possibly target? It's a very wide casted net at 31. It could be a bunch of different kind of permutations here, but what do you kind of see as sort of the strengths of the draft that might make it all the way to 31?
I think there's a lot of depth in this year's defensive class. Honestly, I look at positions like defensive end. I think there's a lot of depth, which I think is an area that the Patriots need a lot of help at. DB, I think this is an exceptional corner class, and then also safety, but also linebacker as well. So any defensive position, honestly, I think there's a lot of depth to be had.
Yeah, I want to stick on the defensive side of the ball because, offensive line, wide receiver, that's going to dominate the headlines for Patriots fans and media. But when we talked to Elliott Wolf earlier today, it was very clear that there were some defensive needs on that side of the ball that he has on his mind as well. Let's start with the safeties because there's two guys, McNeil Warren from Toledo, right, and Dylan Thieneman from Oregon, that I liked both those guys' tapes a lot, but they're very different types of safeties. What do you see out of those two players, and what makes them so different, I guess?
I'll start with Thieneman. He's somebody that coming over from Purdue, when he was at Purdue, he strictly played at free safety. Like you're seeing him 15 to 20 yards away from the ball, and he is what I like to call a mistake eraser on the back end. He was just playing sideline to sideline, really trying to keep everything in front of him, but also when those DBs got beat on the back end, he was just erasing everything. At 6 interceptions his final year there at Purdue, and then he transitions to Oregon, and they changed his role quite a bit. He's playing all over the place. You see him playing nickel. He's playing strong safety. He's playing that middle hole, middle wrap player, but also some free safety as well. And, the area that he cleaned up the most was his tackling. I thought he really struggled tackling his final season at Purdue, and it mainly was because he was coming from so high from the roof that he would miss time, a lot of things, had some bad angles, and took some bad pursuit areas as well. So he really cleaned that up. With McNeil Warren, they utilized him quite a bit, more so at that strong safety spot. He does have some shades of playing at free safety as well, but I think he can be interchangeable. But his hitting power, man, he comes down and he'll thump you. I think that's the area where he's a little bit more polished than Thieneman. But with him, I think he's going to be a huge tester as well, and I don't even know if he's going to be on the board for the Patriots. But very different stylistically, but definitely first-round worthy players.
So with McNeil Warren, I've heard some Nick Amenwari type comps and buzz. Do you see them as similar players? We always obviously just learned a lot, unfortunately, about Nick Amenwari in the Super Bowl, so a familiar player. And it's a type of safety that I'm not sure the Patriots system currently is going to prioritize, but it's also something that they don't really have. Like, they kind of have the Craig Woodsons of the world that can play deep, but they don't necessarily have that, big nickel. Is that how you see him kind of projecting to the pros?
I think primarily that's where he has to play, but I don't think you have to limit him to being that. So let's say 75-35 as far as the splits, just because he does have some really good plays of playing split safety, but also being that single guy high on the roof as well. So I think he's more so interchangeable, but I think you're spot on as far as where you primarily want him to play, which is that big nickel role, that sniffer is what I like to call it, where he can make those plays around the line of scrimmage. But I feel really good about him matching up with those tight ends in the slot, especially when teams go to those 12, 13 personnel, which is where you have to have those bigger guys that not only can be consistent as far as in pass coverage, but also they have to bring some physicality to the table against the run as well.
So going to linebacker, that's another need that Elliott Wolf kind of echoed today. Robert Spillane, Christian Ellis, good players that the Patriots are going to have back, but getting younger, getting some depth there. Who do you like in that day 2 range at linebacker, maybe early day 3? That's not at 31 necessarily, but a little bit deeper.
I have a huge cluster of those guys right now, man. I mean, you talk about Anthony Hill Jr. at Texas. He's that big, athletic spark plug that is a little bit more comfortable playing downhill right now just because he's so aggressive. He's one. One I absolutely love is Jake Golday out of Cincinnati. He's that big physical guy. It was kind of weird how they used him just because he's playing outside at nickel and then a transition to Will, and now he'll have some shades of Mike as well. I think he's more comfortable on the weak side. I think that's what he's going to be on the next level. And then one guy that's really gotten a lot of steam here over the past few weeks, very young, redshirt sophomore, Josiah Trotter out of Mizzou. Very similar to Anthony Hill as far as run defense, aggressive downhill, needs to clean up some things in pass coverage, but I could see him jumping some guys in that second tier that we talked about.
Okay, so we did the defense. That's the nuts and bolts. We got to talk about some wide receivers and playmakers, though, because that's going to
talk about the pretty guys,
all
pretty
right,
boys,
that's
right?
what moves the needle, right? I know you always give us like one or two good wide receiver sleepers every year. So what do you got for us this year?
So one that I like quite a bit is Kevin Coleman, the wide receiver out of Mizzou. And if you remember, going back to the Senior Bowl, nobody could guard that guy, man. He was absolutely phenomenal. Well-traveled, started off his career at Jackson State, then shifted to Mississippi State before ending his career at Missouri. Had a big breakout year last season. I think he's going to be a serviceable wide receiver 3 that's going to give you a lot on special teams. So if you're looking for somebody that can fill out your wide receiver core, I definitely think he is one. Another, if you're looking for that vertical guy, is Bryce Lance out of North Dakota State. He's somebody that we haven't seen at all during the All-Star game circuit, so he's kind of getting lost in that shuffle of these big X receivers, and I think there's a huge cluster of them right now. Ted Hurst at Georgia State, Chris Brazzell at Tennessee, Malachi Fields at Notre Dame. So there's this huge cluster of these big X receivers that can run vertical.
Yeah, I just Brazzell caught my eye because when you start to look at Drake May, 6'5", downfield receiver, really seems to fit that bill. Where are you at with Denzel Boston? Because that's one player, obviously first rounder probably, but I see like wild swings of where in the first round people have him going.
It's just because the prototype that we've seen like that hasn't translated well in the NFL, but I think he's much different than some of the guys that we have seen in years past because I think he's underrated as a separator, but how they used him at Washington was just how they ran him vertically. But when you see him separate in the short to intermediate areas, I definitely think he's very good in that facet, but his hand strength, man, like he catches everything that's in his vicinity. Yeah. He had some great catches against Washington State this year of where you're able to see a lot of hand strength and body control with him.
Yeah, like I've heard a couple Keon Coleman comps. I think he moves different from Keon Coleman.
Without question. I would agree.
Yeah, and that Washington State film, he had that little stutter and go and toe tap on the sidelines. Like, that's also a Drake May receiver right there. Well, that's why we had Jordan Reid on, because as you can tell, he's an encyclopedia where it comes to this kind of stuff. You can find him on ESPN doing all their draft coverage as well. Jordan, thanks for joining us.
Thanks as always, Evan.